How's it going, everyone? And welcome into another edition of the unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. I'm Zach Farmer, and we got a lot to get to in this episode. We are going to be going over, obviously, we have the Olympics, the Summer Olympics coming up in just a few weeks, and rosters are starting to solidify. Campus starting to break for a lot of these teams, and there's a number of WCC names that are going to be popping up throughout the course of those Olympic Games on the men's basketball side, and we'll get into that. We'll also have a chance to talk with Washington State head coach David Riley as he is entering his first season at the helm of the Cougars program, and their first year in the WCC as well. So we'll get the chance to talk with him about where the program is, how he's settling in, and all of those good things. But I want to start with the NBA draft and also Summer League, as the Summer League has already started over this past weekend with the California Classic and a lot of the on-site regional events before they all head to Las Vegas in about a week and a half. And we got to see a few names in the NBA draft that we are very familiar with. Talked a little bit about it the last episode, that Jonathan Mobo would look like he was moving up in the draft boards. And that's exactly what we saw. Jonathan Mobo was the first pick of the second round, number 31 overall to the Toronto Raptors. That's a team that, to me, makes a lot of sense for Jonathan Mobo. They've had success with versatile players like him in the past. And think of, obviously not to quite the scale, but you think of like Pascal Siakam, or you think of OG Anunoby, like guys who have multiple talents, who might be able to actually kind of support what they're trying to do in Toronto. Obviously, they're a little bit in a rebuild right now as they try to resort what they're going to look like moving forward. But Jonathan Mobo, like as I talked about repeatedly, had USF head coach Chris Gerlifson on to talk about it as well. Just the different number of things that he's going to bring. 31, while definitely a lot higher than I thought. Definitely good to see him get picked right there. Also, again, this is the first USF draft pick since 1982. So it's also a huge step for the USF program and kind of adding to the growth that program has seen over the last decade or so. We know like the X number of 20 win seasons in a row, like I think it's like 7 of the last 8. They made the tournament just a few years ago. They're trying to get back to that point. And now they have a player who within 1 year went from virtual unknown to an NBA draft pick. And now we're starting to see quite a few of those guys on WCC rosters. You know, Santa Clara had been their case the last couple of years with Jalen Williams and Brandon Pajemski. This year it's Jonathan Mobo. Gonzaga and the slew of guys that they've had. Pepperdine obviously had Max Lewis last year. We'll talk a little bit about him in the Summer League in a little bit. But a lot of WCC representation and programs kind of up and down the roster of teams that are showing representation in the NBA and in the NBA draft. Two others, obviously, like not as they're just newly into the WCC, but Washington State was also able to send Jalen Wells through the NBA draft. He was picked number 39 by the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that's, again, another really fascinating situation. The Grizzlies are kind of going to be in rebound mode this coming year. They had a lot of injuries last year, and then obviously most notably they were missing John Morant for the first 25 games of the season. So that's a team that is probably going to be looking to be back in the playoff picture, or be back in a significant playoff picture than where they were a year ago. So that Grizzlies team is going to be fascinating to watch, and how Jalen Williams fits into their plan will also be kind of like a huge component of what we're going to see with that team. And then Anton Watson. I thought he might go as an undrafted free agent and find a good spot. Well, he didn't go undrafted, and he still found a good spot. And that was number 54 to the Celtics, the defending NBA champs. 2 straight years, the Zags have had a player be taken by the defending NBA champs. This year, Anton Watson to the Celtics. Last year, it was Julian Strawther to the Nuggets. And I think this speaks a lot to what to the type of player that Anton Watson is. We know the type of defender he is. We know the smart player that he is. We know the number of winning plays that he will make throughout the course of a ball game. And obviously we've seen it like for 5 years at Gonzaga. Like, this is a guy who knows how to win and what it takes to win. We're probably going to get a chance to see how he can improve and grow on his offensive game here in the summer league, because that's going to be a key component as we start to see his NBA development. Is, can he be a more consistent offensive threat than we saw in college? Again, that wasn't his role in college, not on a regular basis, but when he got his opportunity in those last couple of years, we saw the type of player offensively that he can be. He's capable of stretching out the floor to the 3-point line. He's capable of enough ball handler as what is going to be probably a true 4 at the NBA level. So he ended up, I think, in a great spot, because not a lot is going to be expected of him, and he's going to be able to probably grow and develop a little bit at more his pace, and there won't be a rush to have him kind of jump in right away and do maybe more than is necessary. And then a couple others that came out right after the draft, a couple of two-way contracts signed, undrafted guys. Isaac Jones from Washington State being picked up by the Sacramento Kings on a two-way deal, so he will be joining the squad there. And there's already a few ex-WCC players that play within the Kings organization, whether that be between the Sacramento team or the Stockton team just down the road. But also Alex Dukas from St. Mary's was picked up on a two-way deal by the OKC Thunder. And both of those squads, the Kings and the Thunder, really have started to almost like stockpile WCC players. Obviously, like the joke with OKC is they're almost kind of like the OKC, or it's the WCC Thunder. Alex Dukas now joining that team. Logan Johnson was on the OKC G League team a year ago. Obviously, Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga is there. You also have Jalen Williams on that roster. So that's a team that has a lot of WCC connection, as is Sacramento. Mike Brown, the head coach who went to San Diego. You have Domas Sabonis, who went to Gonzaga. There's Jordan Ford, who has been on the G League team there for the Kings up and down for the last couple of years from St. Mary's. So there's a Doug Christie, the Pepperdine connection as well. So there's a lot of WCC connected names in both those programs, and clearly they value what those players are able to bring. And so for those two, it's going to be interesting to see how those guys fit in. Dukas is kind of like the interesting one. Honestly, that was not what I expected, was for him to get a two-way deal. But if he can stay healthy, if his back does continue to heal up and he's able to play in summer league, I mean, he's a straight shooter. Like, all you're going to need him to do for that OKC team is really defend at the level that he was defending at St. Mary's, and then just shoot the ball like he does. And we know how effective a shooter he was. Is a career basically 42% 3-point shooter at St. Mary's. So that's a guy who's going to have probably a very specific role, where I think many of the other draftees are going to have a little bit more of it's going to be a little bit more balanced on what their role will be with their new teams. And so again, we're also moving into summer league, and there are a ton of WCC players in that are going to be participating in summer league, one way or another connected back to WCC programs. And it is 11 different NBA teams will have WCC representation on them. Atlanta, Seattle. The Hawks, the Celtics, the Warriors, Lakers, Grizzlies, Thunder, Suns, Kings, Spurs, Raptors, Jazz, Wizards, all will have a former WCC player on them. A lot of the names are going to sound familiar. Tyler Robertson, Keyshawn Justice, Jonathan Mobo, Drew Timme. Mobo and Timme are going to be teammates in summer league with the Raptors. The pair of USF guys, Bouye and Masalski, are both with the Spurs. Logan Johnson with the Suns. Tommy Kuzi and Max Lewis both playing for the Lakers. Brandon Pajemski obviously with the Warriors. Anton Watson, we talked about him. Moses Wood, while obviously did not spend his last year in the WCC, he was picked up by the Atlanta Hawks, and so there's a little bit of a couple of different members of Portland representation that will be participating as well. And over the weekend, I got to go out to the California Classic and watch. At least I stuck around for the game I thought that I cared about a little bit more. Was the Lakers and the Kings, the reason was because there were 3 WCC players on those rosters: Tommy Kuhse, Max Lewis, and Jordan Ford. And yes, Bronny James was also obviously starting for the Lakers as well. And what was actually like really kind of like warm to see was that we got to see each of the 3 WCC guys play really well in the stretches in which they were in the game. The first one that jumped off the page was Max Lewis. He had 14 points for the game, but it was like six of the Lakers' first 6 points. He had, I think it was like 10 in the first half. He was really active. It was the Max Lewis we all got to see. Like, he ran up and down the court. He created opportunities for himself in the half court, getting out on the break. He looked like the guy like we're used to seeing, but he also looked like the guy who took charge early on. And that will, again, he being in his second year with the Lakers and him kind of going through this once before, he definitely looked a little bit more like the adult in the room early on in that contest. And kind of similarly for Jordan Ford on the Kings side, because again, Jordan Ford, who graduated from St. Mary's in 2020, has been through the NBA G League circuit for a few years now, and he's very much settled. Like, he has a very defined role, and he plays it well. He's a leader. He knows how to run the offense that what the Kings are trying to do. He had 17 points, 6 assists in this contest. I think it was like 7 for 10 from the field or something like that. Jordan Ford, again, like we knew he was a bucket in college, and he's still a bucket at this level. He's definitely one of those guys that you can continue to watch him. I know the size is an issue, but I think he can do something. He would be able to be consistent at the NBA level because he just does so many things extremely well that he would have some value to an NBA team somewhere. And then maybe what shouldn't have been the surprise, but was, I think, more the surprise for maybe everyone watching on ESPN, was the play of Tommy Kuhse. We actually got to see both Kuhse and Ford match up a good number of times during this game. And Kuhse, within the first 10 seconds of checking in the game, hits a 3. He became really that on-court leader, and for the Lakers, was running the offense really well. Kuhse was distributing, he was scoring, he did all the things that we saw him do as a St. Mary's Gale a few years ago. He had 15 points and 8 assists in that contest. He was one of the best players on the floor on Saturday, and it was really fun to see both Kuhse and Ford match up, play well. Max Lewis be out there, play well. The 3 WCC guys rep the league, I think, as well as you could have hoped, and maybe more so on that stage, especially with, again, more eyes on that game probably than a normal summer league game because of the attention that Bronny James brought to that game. And with Kuhse and Ford, that pair, you have to remember, like, that was the St. Mary's backcourt for a year. That was the starting backcourt in that 18-19 season, the backcourt for that 19-20 season. It was Tommy Kuhse and Jordan Ford. And thinking about that, you really kind of like wind the clock back to what that looked like. And now seeing these two guys be on an NBA floor together is really cool to see. And also just to see how successful the two of them have been and were just last night, just over the weekend, in the California Classic at Chase Center. And we're going to see a lot more of this with WCC guys kind of rematching up throughout the course of the Summer League. Again, like listed off all the guys that are going to be participating. A lot of USF, a good number of USF guys. You have a fair number of St. Mary's guys. Obviously, the Gonzaga guys are going to be there. And this is all going to be kind of We're heating up with Summer League. This is all going to happen really in the week leading up to the Olympics. So we're going to have kind of like this back-to-back experience of here's a lot of the younger, the newer WCC alums that are getting their shot and having their opportunity to play and find a spot on an NBA roster this next couple of weeks. And then after that, we get to see the veterans, the guys who are a little bit more seasoned, who are on Olympic teams. And we will see like how each of those teams goes. We know like Team Australia has a bunch of St. Mary's guys on it. We know that we're going to see also Team Canada, who has a couple of Zags. I believe like every other team, I think it's 6 total teams are going to have WCC representation. 1 is basically all St. Mary's. The other 5 are all Zags representation. And it's going to be really cool to see them playing on that stage. And really like for the first time on that stage in not 4 years, but really like 8 years, because obviously in 2020, 21, the Olympics was not the same environment, the same stage as it was the year before, or what we're going to see in Paris because of the pandemic. All right, so before we get into the Olympics, we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk to David Riley, the head coach at Washington State, entering his first year, and he'll tell us all about how it's been in these early days in Pullman. All right, I'm excited to bring in the newest addition to the WCC, Washington State head coach, David Riley. David, how's it going in your first few weeks or few months, I should say, and how's that transition been for you?
Yeah, no, it's been a whirlwind. It's been really fun getting to know everybody here, getting to meet the community in Pullman. And these last couple of weeks have been great. Just being able to work with the guys a little bit and see what we got, and it's been fun to get to work on the court.
Yeah, and you have a group that you've had to really kind of like retool the entire roster. As we know, there was a heavy turnover from the Kyle Smith season this past year. A lot of transfers heading out, which is not unusual for a lot of teams, unfortunately, at this stage of where we are in college basketball. But you also were able to kind of bring in some familiar faces as well. You brought 4 guys over with you from Eastern Washington. So as you've had these first few weeks of time with the guys on the court, how have you seen this group start to gel, and how excited are you for this group in your first season there?
Yeah, so it is a different deal than it was 5-10 years ago. Now taking over a new job, we were returning 2 players from last year's top 25 season at Washington State. So the beauty of it though is that there are 2 players that were on a top 25 team. They know what winning looks like. They know what a championship basketball team looks like. And so having Parker and Isaiah has been a huge help for me and for our staff to be able to kind of instill those winning values. And then the other piece of it for me, I've been a head coach for 3 years. It's not totally new to me. Like when I got the head coaching job at Eastern Washington, we lost our 7 leading scorers. We were able to build through the transfer portal and have a decent season that first year. And then that's where, our kind of developmental culture and the continuity helped us. And then we were able to win the league the next 2 years. And so I think, we're in a great spot where we do have some returning guys from last year's team. It is a huge help to be able to bring my 4 Eastern guys over and just have some continuity. They know the terminology. They know what the schedule looks like. They know how practices are structured. And so, on paper, for sure, it looks like a total rebuild. But then when you actually get here in the gym, these guys are competing in week 2, like they've known each other for years. And so I think some of that familiarity has really helped. And then we're just able to adjust to the new times.
Having those 4 come over, like bringing over LeJean Watts, Ethan Price, Cedric Howard, Dane Erickstrop. During your intro press conference, you talked about family, trust, and commitment being kind of like the 3 pillars you wanted to build your program off of. How much have like those 4, knowing what you were able to do these past 2 years at Eastern Washington, has helped kind of like the early stages of what you're trying to do there with the Cougars?
Man, it's been great. Like, I think we do things a little different. We spend a lot of time together. Like I'm in the office a lot. Our coaching staff's in the office a lot, and so our returners, or our Eastern guys, kind of understand, like, hey, we can just go hang out. We don't have doesn't have to be like some principal office talk every time I go to the office. It doesn't have to be a film session that's negative every time we go in there. It's like, there's real relationships here. They're kind of encouraging the other guys to come along. They're really developing that chemistry that we had at Eastern Washington, which is huge. Like that's the family piece is where it all starts. If you look at this like work, then it's not going to be an enjoyable process, because we spend so much time together, and you're not able to get that extra, 2-3% that you need out of these days if you're really trying to get out of here and just punch a time card. So I think they've done a great job instilling that. And then, I think it's just the guys that we've brought in, the two guys that are returning, they've all bought into that as well. And they understand what we're trying to get out of this. They understand the values. And so it's been a really fun first couple of weeks of just everyone being on the same page and just fighting to build that chemistry, to build the family environment. And then that's how you build trust. You show that you're committed by doing that over and over. So I think, those values have been brought in a little quicker by having the Eastern boys. But at the end of the day, like it's just all about showing them who you are every single day. And I think that's been the fun part of the last couple of weeks.
And you had obviously quite a bit of success with those guys at Eastern, back-to-back Big Sky championships in the regular season. And we also have seen in the WCC a few guys from Eastern who have had success. Tyler Robertson, Mike Meadows, Steele Venters coming over, all guys you're familiar with. And seeing like those guys have success in this league, obviously league-wise, it's a step up for you, and Washington State, obviously it's a transition as well. Seeing the success that those guys have been able to have at different levels, at higher levels, is that kind of like an additional selling point to the guys coming over? It's like, hey, it's like these guys were able to be successful at a higher level as they came over. And this is, again, another step up, and they get to be together as they kind of make that transition.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of this thing is we've got a bunch of guys that are underdogs. Like you can look at our Washington State team this year, like every single one of these guys has been counted out to some extent, right? Like, Parker and Isaiah were both guys that weren't recruited very high until late in their recruiting process. Isaiah had to go to prep school. Parker was coming in, kind of in that late scholarship spot. And so those guys, they've got a chip on their shoulder and they develop. Like our Eastern guys, none of them are supposed to. Like Dane was a D2 player before he got to Eastern. Cedric was a D3 player. Luan and Ethan ended up coming here. Ethan's a little different story, but like they all kind of came in here not expected to produce. And 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we lost our 7 leading scorers. Guys stepped up in this program. 2 years ago, we lose Steele Venters. We lose Angelo Allegri to the G League. We lost like 40 points per game. All these guys came in and developed. And, that's the beauty of seeing the Tyler Robertson go to the WCC and produce. Like Coach Jake Groves and Tanner Groves and these guys that have gone, Steele Venters, that have gone to higher levels and done the right things. And so it just helps the guys kind of buy in when they understand that this has been done before. This process works. If you stick to the blueprint, like we've got a plan that's really exciting. And then I think that helps kind of, clarify that yes, this is a plan that has success. But the other piece is like the chemistry. Like in this day and age, these players are getting thrown a lot of money. And so the plan was for all these guys to stay at Eastern because they valued the development, they valued the family atmosphere, they valued each other. They knew we had something special going on. They were turning down a lot of money to stay there. And so I just think like that mindset, and now being able to come to Washington State with our family, like it's a really cool thing to be able to put it all together. And now it's kind of on us to keep that chip on our shoulder and make sure that we're ready to show the WCC, because, the reality is like, we're going to be picked in the middle of the pack. Like there's some really, really good teams. There's some really, really good coaches that have done a lot more than we have. And so we got a lot to prove.
Now coming over, obviously you do have, there is one coach in the WCC you're obviously very familiar with, and that's Shante Leggins, who was your head coach for a few years there while you were still at Eastern. He was the head coach. What sort of conversation, because I did hear you talk a little bit about, mention Shante in your intro press conference about kind of the role he's kind of played in your growth as a head coach. Have you had any conversations with him since you took the job, and what has that been like in those combos?
Yeah, we talk a lot. Shante and I came up in the business together. Like I think it was 10 years that we worked together at Eastern. He was there. We were both assistants together at first, and then I was able to work for him for 4, 5, 6 years. I have no idea. Yeah, it's all a blur. But just kind of being able to talk to him about the adjustments that he had to the WCC. We're always picking each other's brains about what we're putting in the summer and what kind of guys we're recruiting, what kind of guys fit. And so I think we both want each other to have success. Obviously, there'll be twice a year where we're competing, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see how that goes. I've competed against Shante in some one-on-one and some noon hoops in pickleball or in a pickup ball, but like I haven't done a real basketball game against him. So it's gonna be fun to see how that goes. But no, he's been really helpful. Their staff's been great. Still close to those guys, and just kind of going on the road these last couple of weeks, meeting some of the other WCC coaches in the league has been great for me to kind of get to see what this place is all about, and this is exciting league to join.
And obviously being up in the Pacific Northwest and being specifically in Eastern Washington, you kind of have had that one of them in the shot there, kind of right there in Gonzaga. As you kind of like looked at the way they've kind of built that program as kind of being the kind of marquee program of the WCC, what have you been able to take, or have you had maybe like interactions with Mark Few on like how like how they've been able to kind of sustain their success, and what you might be able to transfer over to what you do at Washington State?
Yeah, Gonzaga's been a program that I've studied a lot. I grew up loving Adam Morrison. Like he was a player that I really liked when I was in high school. And so ever since then, I've kind of been a Gonzaga fan. When I started coaching, I really studied Gonzaga's offense. Like I think the way they conceptualize their offense, and they don't necessarily have a bunch of sets, but they're playing through concepts. I think we've adapted that a lot. I got close with Tommy Lloyd, who was a huge help to me building some international connections. And when I was just getting into the business, he took the time to, grab a drink with me and talk me through some of that stuff. And anytime I've had questions the last couple of years, he's been able to help me. And so a lot of those Brian Michelson, a lot of those coaches that have been at Gonzaga have been great help to me. And I've watched a ton of their film. I actually don't know Mark Few, but like just their program, their shadow, the influence they have in Spokane has been something that I've admired, and I think they do a great job. And we're just trying to do some of the stuff they do that makes them successful, but then also be the best version of ourselves.
And now you talked about this Washington State position being a dream job for you. And can you talk about a little bit of like what were some of like the key components of like what was it about Washington State that kind of made it that for you, and being obviously like it, because it really seemed like one of the big components that you've spent so much time obviously in that region, and they being one of the marquee programs of that area. But yeah, talk a little bit more about what that means in your mind.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the Pacific Northwest. I did grow up in California. I'm still not totally used to the cold. I just stay in the gym and stay in the car during the winter. But like I love the Northwest. I've spent a lot of time. My family's from up here originally, so I think that's one piece of it. I value the idea of a state school. Like I've been lucky enough to experience. I went to a private college. I went to a public high school. And worked at Eastern Washington. I just really, really value what Eastern brought to that community, and then seeing what Washington State brings to this community and the state in general. It's like it's a huge thing. I think it's a necessary thing to keep the people in this state educated, give them a chance. Like this is a institution that does a lot for the state, and so I can get behind that. there's other colleges that I don't necessarily totally agree with all their values. And so to have a place that I can, number one, agree with the values of the school. I love the area that we're in. I think we can win at a national level. Like, this is a place where you look at the facilities, you look at the support, you look at the alumni base. Like, there's a real passion for this university. Like, it checks a lot of boxes for me. And then the last piece is, like, a college town is amazing for how I want to run a program. It kind of self-selects guys that are really serious about the game. Like, if you're going to college because you want to go to the beach, or you want to have a big nightlife, or you want to go to the cities, like, that's not necessarily what our basketball program is about. Like, we're about being in the gym and building a family and getting better. Like, this is a really, really clear thing why you're coming to Pullman. And I think once you understand that and you embrace it, it's a beautiful thing. And so the college town is a great piece to it as well. And so there's just so many boxes this place has checked for me. And then hopefully I can kind of show everyone why this is a beautiful place and what we've got going here. And I think that in the past, there's been some coaches that have had a ton of success here, and that's not by accident.
So as you start to think about, like, your transition there and everything else, moving from Spokane down to the Pullman area, where maybe some places actually, as WCC people start to make that trip to Pullman, like, what are some maybe like your favorite go-to restaurant or something like that? Because again, like, I'm, as someone who like will try to make some of these trips, I'm always looking like, all right, where do I got to go to eat? Where can I find a good spot? Because that's like almost number one for me, is where to go.
I got you. Well, the Coug got some good burgers. I know that. And we've been all over the place. They got a steakhouse, Black Cypress, here that's been really, really good. Man, there's so many restaurants that have taken care of us and shown us a great time. When we have recruits out, when we have our players, we go to a lot of team meals, after practices and stuff. And so it's a really cool college town. There's good restaurants. They got some good Mexican joints here. And I've enjoyed just kind of getting to see everything. I don't feel like I'm qualified yet to give you all the recommendations. I'm only 2 months in. So when you come up, I'll have some better answers for you.
Yeah, we'll add to the Rolodex of all the places to go. Got quite a few months before we get to basketball season.
Yeah.
Coach Riley, thanks for hopping on. Thanks for having a chat with me. Washington State is only within their first few days of being in the WCC, but the first of 2 years at minimum in the WCC, Washington State joining the conference. Once again, thanks, Coach, for hopping on, and we'll definitely catch up down the road.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Talk soon.
Want to thank David Riley for hopping on and giving us a chance to really kind of like peel back a little bit of what it's been like in these early stages in Pullman. This is going to be a really fascinating team, because this Washington State squad has done, I shouldn't say this Washington State squad, David Riley's Eastern Washington teams were so unique in what they did, and were so efficient on the offensive end and what they were able to do in the Big Sky. Bringing that over to Washington State is going to be a really interesting look to see if transitionally it will still work. Obviously, he's bringing a few of his guys that are coming over, and there's going to be some level of familiarity there. And only time's going to tell, because there's a long way before we get to basketball season, a lot of training camp to look at. And this Washington State team is, in my mind, is probably right mid-pack, low mid-pack, right in the middle of the WCC race as of right now. But a lot could change between now and then. All right. So one of the last note is going to be about what is happening at the end of the month, and that is the Olympics. And there are a number of WCC alums who will be heading off to the Olympics to represent their individual countries. Canada will be represented by Kelly Olynyk and Andrew Nemhard from Gonzaga. Serbia will have Filip Petrusev from Gonzaga. Japan, Rui Hachimura. Team USA, Mark Few is on the coaching staff, so that is another representation from the WCC there. Lithuania, assuming that they do win their final qualifying match on Sunday against Puerto Rico, Domas Sabonis will also be represented in the will be in the Olympics representing Lithuania. And then Team Australia, which we know has always had a very strong St. Mary's presence. Patty Mills will be back for his 5th Olympics appearance. Matthew Dellavedova back for his 4th Olympics appearance. Jock Landale will be back for his 2nd. Adam Caporn, who was the first of the St. Mary's Aussies, will be on the coaching staff. David Patrick, who also has been a head coach in various spots around the country, but was also an assistant at St. Mary's, will also be on the Australian coaching staff. So a good number of names from both St. Mary's and from Gonzaga who will be part of the Summer Olympics on the men's basketball side. And it really will be a fun scene to see these teams get at it. Obviously, especially like the teams that we know who have kind of been consistent players in what the medal hunt is going to look like. Australia has been in that race for basically the last 4 cycles. Canada has continued to rise and is also kind of in that medal contention. We've seen, obviously, Team USA is coming back in what might arguably always like one of the more loaded teams they've ever had. Steph Curry is his first time on the Olympic team. So there's that Team USA is going to have a very interesting dynamic because you have a lot of older guys on that team now. Like that, the fact that the LeBron, Steph, KD era this is probably their last go around in the Olympics because they are the old guys now. They are the seniors of the NBA, and this is going to be probably the last time seeing that group in the Olympics, definitely together. But it could be the last time we see them on this stage ever. And so that will also be a special moment to kind of see all of that. Again, also probably last time we see Patty Mills participating in the Olympics. It might very well be the last time Matthew Dellavedova participates in the Olympics. Might be the last time, based just thinking about age, like that Kelly Olynyk plays in the Olympics. So there's so many guys that this is an every 4-year event. This could be the last time a lot of these guys see this opportunity and get back in. Again, Lithuania, they're in the qualifying tournament. So it's not even always a guarantee that the team will return to the Olympics in the next cycle in 28. So this is going to be a special year. I think there's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun to see this group. I mean, I'm obviously looking forward to seeing the Australian group, Patty Mills, Delhi, Jock Landale. You can see, for those who are looking on the video, can see that I have the 3 gnomes behind me of Delhi, Patty, and Jock. And so these 3 have carried various eras of St. Mary's basketball. A lot of the names for the Zag side have carried various eras of Zag basketball, but each of them brings something different, and seeing them on that Olympic stage is going to just be a lot of fun. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of the unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite streaming service. Follow along on social media at Post by Zach and at UnoffWCC Pod. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will catch you later.